I'm considered the black sheep of my family and had been excluded from a family gathering. So I crashed the next one to announce my engagement. I am 28, the youngest of 3 children. And let's just say I have always been the family's black sheep. My brother, Mark, is 35. My sister, Sarah, is 32. They are the golden children, the ones who do everything perfectly, with steady work, large homes and those ideal, immaculate, cookie-cutter neighborhoods, matching marriages, and stunningly handsome babies. Mark works in finance. Sarah is a powerful attorney, and they both exude the success mindset that my parents admire. 2 years ago, I left the corporate grind to start my own business. Though it's small, it's mine, and I'm really proud of it. I make a decent living, and my partner, Alex, and I share a wonderful modest leased apartment. We cherish our lives despite the fact that we lack material wealth. Let's just say I don't meet the ideal. My parents have always had a vision of how their children's life should be. They adore using phrases like stable and traditional, and I'm sure my small business and rental home don't shout such things. The subtle jabs at my hobby job and remarks about how much easier my life would be if I had simply stuck with a 9-to-5 have become second nature. Though the hostility has been simmering for years, we have always been polite. Still, I couldn't believe it was this bad. I discovered a story from my cousin while surfing Instagram a few weeks ago. It was a large family gathering, like the ones my family hosts several times a year. Everyone was present, including Mark, Sarah, their partners, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Everybody but me. I initially thought I was missing an email or a group conversation. Despite texting Mark and Sarah, neither of them responded. Hours passed, and the sinking sense began to creep in. You know the one, where you know something is wrong but refuse to admit it. I called my mother the following day. I asked how things were, and if there had been a get-together, keeping my voice casual. She answered, "Oh, the reunion. I didn't think you would want to come. You're always so busy with your little business and everything." After a too long pause, I needed time to absorb that. I asked her what she meant. Why wouldn't I want to visit my family? Is this what she thought? She rejected it, claiming they did not want to bother me. She also noted that, while I had previously missed a few functions, they were all business-related. Pressing harder allowed me to see clearly. They hadn't just ignored inviting me. Not that they would have wanted to. My gut sank. I sat there, going over the conversation after I hung up. Though it wasn't the first time I'd felt excluded, this time was different. This was supposed to be purposeful. Alex lost it when I told him. He advised me to proceed regardless. He said they had no say in whether I belonged, and he was correct. Why should I allow them to treat me as if I do not exist? I'm weary of being an afterthought. That's when the plan started to take shape. Alex and I had recently gotten engaged. We hadn't notified anyone yet since I wanted to do it privately with my family. I now had a different motivation. I was going to remind them that I existed. Even if they were going to exclude me, this time they wouldn't dismiss me. So I decided to show up unexpectedly. I declined Alex's offer to accompany me on my trip. This was something I had to do alone. We devised a plan, and he promised to pick me up if things went wrong. I would arrive and then leave if they objected to my presence, but only after I revealed my news. I cooked a lot of cookies in the previous days. It was something that would appear natural, exactly what I had planned to bring along. Alex kept telling me that I didn't need to prove anything to anyone, but this wasn't about proving myself. It was about showing up for me. I was bored with shrinking away because they didn't think I belonged there. It took slightly more than 3 hours to go to my parents' house. For the most part, I pretended to be a regular visitor. Given why I was there, the delightful aroma of the box of cookies on the passenger seat seemed ironic. When I eventually got to the house, it was completely packed. Cars flooded onto the grass around the driveway. I took a deep breath, reached for the cookies, and moved toward the front door. Inside, music and laughter rang out. When I stepped inside, the cacophony stopped. There was no need for me to look for them, because they had all seen me. Mid-sentence talks fell flat, and I noticed a lot of eyes gazing. My mother was the first to meet me. She approached, her voice too joyful. "Oh, you made it. What a surprise." She did not hug me. Instead, she gave me a small pat on the arm before turning away. She couldn't detect the false warmth in her tone. The space moved in an awkward shuffle. Individuals resumed their conversations, if not precisely the same. I noticed Mark and Sarah peering across the room. Mark vanished into the kitchen, and Sarah, standing with her husband, glanced at me briefly before engaging in a loud conversation with some aunts. Once again, I came upon my cousin, whose Instagram account had piqued my interest. She nodded and gave me a small smile, obviously surprised to see me. I placed my cookies on the dining table, amid a catered meal arrangement. Nobody looked at them at all. As I walked down the hall, I overheard an aunt whisper, "Did they not invite her on purpose?" I stopped to appear to be examining my phone, and passed them into the living room. A few minutes later, my cousin pulled me aside. "They didn't expect you to come," she replied quietly. She seemed to regret saying it. Yet there it was. "Your parents, well, they didn't think you'd fit in here anymore." It felt like I was a shattered puzzle piece in a family photo. I strolled off, and met my father behind the drink station. I'm not sure what I said in reply. I chose to test the waters regarding the reunion. Why hadn't anyone brought it up with me? He barely glanced up from the glass he was filling. "We felt you would be happier working on your own project," said the manager. Although the words hung large in the air, they were not harsh. I refrained from pushing him since I knew there would be no reaction. The package of cookies I brought was still unopened on the table. Small talk with family who pretended they didn't see me seemed wrong. Still, it wasn't altogether bad. Two of my younger relatives approached to say hi. I felt better when they asked about my company and noted seeing some of my work online. At the very least, someone inquired about my life. The room hummed with bustle again, and I sat in the corner, mindlessly scrolling through my phone. I preferred no scene at all. I merely needed time to evaluate my next move. Sarah's voice cut through the noise. Her face lit up with excitement, and she clapped her hands. "Everybody, I have some news to share." The room fell silent, and everyone turned to her to discover she was expecting her second child. Cheers broke out. Everyone applauded, and some uncles mocked, placing bets on whether it would be a boy or girl. My mother appeared to be on the verge of bursting with glee. No one looked at me. I stood there, taking in the congratulations and jokes. I seemed to have vanished once more, as usual. Similarly, it didn't matter how much I was present. It didn't matter that I showed up despite not being invited. They treated me like an alien while continuously praising my siblings. Something inside me caught on. I'm not sure if it was the muttering I heard, my father's departure, or the fact that my cookies remained uneaten. Maybe it was all of it. I took a tumbler from the drink table, and clinked it loudly with my fork. The room eventually quieted down again, and heads turned toward me. Sarah, who had been basking in the spotlight, was anxious. I passed over it with a forceful voice. "Well," I quipped, "since we're sharing big news, I have something to say too." The chamber fell silent again, just as it had when I first entered. Every conversation came to a halt, forks froze in midair, and everyone turned to look at me. Nonetheless, the reaction was not as warm or joyful as it would have been if Sarah had announced her pregnancy. It's more like me interrupting something divine. Despite my rushing heart, I maintained an upright posture and steady hands. "I wanted to let you know some news of my own," I replied, displaying the engagement ring that sparkled under the dining room lights. I raised my left hand. 2 weeks ago, I became engaged. Nobody responded for a moment. A few scattered claps then interrupted the silence. My younger relatives gave small cheers from the side of the room. A respectful uncle nodded in approval. However, the rest of the room remained immobile, as if they were unsure how to react. My mother's face dropped before she attempted a feeble smile, the kind she usually reserved for complete strangers. Her voice lacked energy and inquiry. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" It sounded like an allegation. Her gaze briefly shifted to the ring before returning to me. I was not slow. I yelled it loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I wasn't sure you would care. After all, I figured you didn't want me involved in family things anymore. I wasn't invited here." The room grew unpleasant in waves. People changed their chairs, or stared at each other, while pretending to check their phones. Mark, who had been watching from the kitchen door, shoved off the frame and went forward, his face flushed. His voice came out sharply. You always have to make everything about you. This is not about you." That prompted a response. A few murmurs of, "Not now," escaped their lips, but I could feel everyone gazing. Mark crossed his arms and pinned me with his stare, daring me to say anything else. I followed. "Really? Because I don't remember getting an invite to this little party, but you all seem just fine without me. My engagement, is just as significant as anyone else's." The room fell silent again. Sarah, still dazzling from her own announcement, refused to look at me. My mother's polite veneer gave way to a more familiar expression of discontent. Her mask was starting to shatter. I noticed her inhale as if she were going to say something. Before she could speak, a voice cut through the silence. One of my relatives noted, "She has every right to be upset." She sat with her arms folded, close to the couch edge. If you didn't invite her, what would you have expected? That she would simply stay quiet forever? A few heads turned to stare at my cousin across the dining table. Another voice interjected, "Yeah, it's not like she's wrong." For a brief moment, I felt something change. Although it wasn't much, it was plenty. The fissures were starting to show. My mother, probably knowing she was losing control of the situation, reacted as she usually does when cornered. She altered the topic. She responded, bringing cheer back into her voice. "Let's not forget how exciting it is that your sister is having another baby. That's wonderful news for the family." The deviation was rather evident. She would not allow me to have this moment, even for a second. The focus quickly returned to Sarah, who grinned tightly and thanked everyone again for their congratulations. Mark gave me a scornful look, as if to ask, "See? Star." I had enough. I grabbed my phone from my pocket and swiftly texted Alex, not waiting any longer than necessary. "Come get me. Star." I said nothing. I reached for my handbag and walked to the front door. A few of my younger cousins rushed after me, apologizing and asking where I was going. One of them hugged me and murmured, "You don't deserve this." I squeezed her back and assured her I would be all right. I heard my father's voice whisper from the side of the room, "Drama queen." I was getting ready to put on my coat. Not too loud, and not too quiet. I paused briefly before turning around. Instead, I unlocked the door and exited. The chilly air removed the weight from my chest as if by shock. Before I could get too far, one of my relatives raced out after me, halfway down the driveway. "Wait!" she exclaimed. I halted and turned to face her. She appeared sheepish, almost as if she didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," she said. "For everything. That was brave. You standing up for yourself in there. You didn't deserve to be treated like that." I nodded and coughed, clearing the lump in my throat. "Thanks," I managed to say. Her phone rang in her pocket, most likely from someone inside questioning my actions. She stared at me one more time, regretfully, before turning back toward the home. A few minutes later, Alex's automobile pulled up. I sat down, placed my purse on the seat, and tightened my seatbelt. I broke down as soon as I felt the car move. Tears streamed down my cheeks like if I'd been pushing them back for hours. Alex remained quiet. He merely reached out and squeezed my hand. I let it all out as the trees beyond the window blurred. By the time we got to the main road, the crying had subsided into quiet sniffles. Despite all of this, I felt raw and embarrassed. Underneath it all was another thing. Belief. I hadn't just let it happen. For the first time, I'd spoken up. Even if they didn't want to, I made them come see me. There was stillness in the car on the way home. Alex just drove. His hand was warm on my knee, and he would occasionally press it to reassure me. I looked out the window, the trees blending into a continuous green stripe. My mind raced, replaying every reunion memory. Mark's rage, my father's contempt, and my mother's false cheerfulness. All of this combined to produce a sour blend of hurt and wrath. Eventually, I started speaking. It all spilled out. The way my parents often compared my unstable profession to my brother's successful one. The subtle jabs, the scornful eyes, and the way they always seemed to prioritize my brother's families over mine. Alex listened attentively, nodding occasionally. When I finally finished, he replied, "You did the right thing. They don't get to decide you don't matter. We'll move ahead, build our own life, and we won't need their approval." His words soothed my raw emotions. When we were close to home, my phone buzzed. My cousin was the one who ran after me. She sent this note. "You were right. Your mom told everyone you're a disappointment because you don't have a steady career. She also said your engagement doesn't compare to your sister's news. Your parents have been talking about you behind your back for some time. I'm sorry, but you need to know this." My stomach became tight. Before I could process what had just happened, another communication arrived. Screenshots. They came from a group conversation named Family Catch UPS, in which I was clearly missing. One of the screenshots definitely displayed my mother's name. "I'm not sure why she would want to come anyhow," she had written. "She's always doing her own thing and making everything about her. So selfish. At least Sarah is living a life we can be proud of. Quitting a real job to play business owner." My chest contracted. The following screenshot was terrible. "Honestly, I didn't tell her about the reunion because I didn't want her coming and ruining the day with some dramatic story about her engagement. It's not like she's getting married first, so who cares?" Alex's attention remained riveted on me when the screen appeared once more. "What is it?" he asked, looking concerned. I said quietly, my voice shaking, "Proof." By the time we came home, I was still staring at the screenshots. Without thinking, I rejoined my family group chat, which I had been thrown off of years before. Anger, hurt, and disbelief wreaked havoc inside. I emailed the screenshots the soon my name appeared in the chat. "There's nothing else. Simply display the receipts for everyone to see." Several seconds later, I typed, "Is this how you really feel about me? I guess I should have stayed forgotten." Then I put my phone down and waited. There was an immediate surge of responses. Mark arrived first, of course. Then Sarah said, "What did you think sharing this would do? You're just making everything worse for no reason. Let it go. This was private. You're being dramatic and blowing things out of proportion, as normal." I could see them typing, one after the other, with their messages clearly apparent. I let them yell for a minute before calling out my mother's name. Her message was lengthier than the others. Those comments were taken out of context. "You're reading too much into things. And I value you. Not starting all this needless drama. You've always been too sensitive." I took up the phone again, and typed a response. "Taken out of context? I'm hurt because no parent should discuss their child this way. I didn't even get invited to my own family reunion, and this is what you think of me." My father's name appeared in the conversation for the first time, but he did not put anything under my message, only a scene marker. I left without finishing the remaining. I put my phone on silent and hurled it across the couch. Alex drew me closer and sat next to me. But shortly later, my phone buzzed again. One of my aunts sent a personalized message. "I'm so sorry for the way you've been treated. I never knew any of this was happening. You deserve better." A short time later, another communication arrived. "We're proud of you for standing up for yourself. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise." Though it was insignificant, it gave me hope that I was not losing my mind after so long. I felt like I was exaggerating. Maybe I was overly sensitive, as my mother always cautioned. But I had evidence, and a few people on my side. My phone rang, and I began to think the worst was over. My sister's name flashed on the screen. Though I almost ignored it, I responded. She didn't waste time at all. "You're upsetting the family dynamic," she said. "Why could you not just let it go? Mom didn't invite you because she didn't want any tension. You've only made things worse." I did not argue. I remained mute. Not being invited to your own family's reunion isn't something you just let go, I corrected myself. She hung there after that. That evening, while sitting with Alex, I decided I'd had enough. I wasn't going to keep pushing them for acceptance. I was not going to pursue it because a family clearly did not want me around. I needed to back off for my own mental clarity. I turned off the group chat. I forbade my sister. I reminded myself that it was better to give up trying. For the first time in years, I refused to pray for love that was not freely given. 1 week after the dramatic family group chat, my phone rang. It was my dad. My father rarely calls, leaving all family concerns to my mother. Hearing his name come up astonished me. Despite my curiosity, I almost left the call on voicemail. He started with those fumbling welcomes that always hang heavily between us. Then, after a long silence, He stated that he wanted to clear the air on the reunion. He called it a miscommunication, and said it wasn't meant to hurt. He made the closest apology I'd ever heard. I let him off easily. Nonetheless, I asked directly, why was I not invited? He stammered for words, and came upon, it wasn't intentional. I reminded him of my mother's words in the group conversation. How do you forget to invite your own daughter? I asked. Just another long period of silence. He spoke quietly. Your mom, she thought it would be better that way. She didn't want any tension. And that's when I heard my mother's voice. Following the background rustle, she exclaimed strongly, as if I had somehow called her. I'm here too. Then the waterworks started. She claimed I was attacking her, and that posting the screenshots shamed her family. She claimed I was the one causing problems. I had made everything public just to humiliate her and create drama. I did not yell back. I assured her that I was not attacking anyone and kept a calm mind. I wanted the truth only. Alex, who had been nearby, dropped down to place a hand on my shoulder. Don't let them twist this, he said. Her tone changed when my mother saw I wasn't backing down. You announced your participation in the reunion only to take center stage and grab Sarah's attention, she explained. I have every right to tell you the news of my joyful life, I said in return. I wasn't competing with anyone. If I had been invited in the first place, none of this would have happened. Still more stillness. Then came the ultimatum. Maybe it's better if you don't come to family events at all, she said harshly. If you can't forgive us and move on, then? There it was, the final dismissal. I kept a cool head. I did not sob. I simply responded. If that's how you feel, then fine. After taking a big breath, I hung up. I sat there for a minute, my attention focused on the phone in my hand. Alex came down and waited silently next to me. I delivered him all of my mother's charges, my father's half apology, and the ultimatum. They're displaying exactly who they are, he said. I examined everything that had transpired prior to this. That evening in bed, it all came together. The lonely holidays, the constant comparisons, the disparaging remarks. I had no rights to this. I didn't deserve to fight for meager affection, or pretend that everything was fine when it wasn't. For the first time, I was determined not to follow those who made me feel inadequate. Alex brought me coffee the next morning, and sat across from me. I've been thinking, he explained. Why don't we have our own engagement party? Something modest, just people who really support us. Initially, the concept appeared strange. For so long, I had relied on my family. I had not given them much thought. But when I thought about it, it made more sense. Why should I continue to make an effort for those who have shown little interest? By the end of the day, we had compiled a list that included friends, Alex's family, and some of my cousins who had contacted us following the reunion. They all agreed that I deserved better. I chose to let go of what I couldn't control and focus on the ones who came through for me, without conditions. I kept the celebration a secret from my siblings and parents. I was done trying to fix something that had been broken for years. I knew it would only lead to greater chaos. The engagement celebration was ideal. We kept it modest and personal, with close friends, Alex's family, and supportive relatives. We decorated with flowers from the neighborhood market, strung lights in the backyard, ate homemade cuisine, and ordered some takeout. Simple, yet quite cozy. The air was alive with genuine joy and laughter. The cousin who had emailed the screenshots gave me a hard hug. You deserve better, she stated softly. We're glad for you. An hour later, the biggest surprise arrived. Alex prodded me as yet another automobile approached. My aunt was the one who apologized for the breakdown in the group chat. I hope it's okay that I came, she said. I wanted to see you both and say congrats personally. Having her there meant everything to me. It was about the people who arrived without reservation, not the numbers. Alex toasted as the evening progressed. To my future wife, he continued with a wink. I could not be prouder of the person she is, and the life we are building together. I have watched her face so many challenges, and yet come out stronger. I stood there among people who genuinely wanted to celebrate with us. For the first time, I felt truly recognized. There are no comparisons, no backhanded insults, and no need to prove anything, only love. Later, We finished cooking and sat around the fire pit with a small group of friends, laughing. One of my relatives said, "I haven't seen you this happy in years." She was not mistaken. 2 weeks later, my father wrote me an email. This time, he delivered a different kind of apology. He stated that he did not do more to include me, and that he failed to defend me. "I know I have been quiet when you have needed me to speak up," he wrote in an email. "Though it will take time, I hope we can start rebuilding this relationship." He also mentioned that my mother still saw things differently. "She believes she's the real victim in all of this," he told me. "And I'm sorry for that too. I'm not sure whether she will ever admit her mistakes." It stung but was not alarming. I took some time to react. I appreciated his outreach, but I informed him that actions speak louder than words. If he sincerely intended to rebuild, everyone involved would have to do their share. Sarah, of course, was unable to resist stirring the pot. Several days later, she made a passive-aggressive Facebook post about airing dirty laundry for attention. I didn't respond. I just blocked her and moved on. Her opinions and judgments held no sway over me anymore. After that, life felt fuller, but quieter. My business, our wedding preparations, and spending time with people who actually cared about me took priority. I eventually found peace after letting go of the drive to please my family. Looking back, I realized I had squandered so much of my life attempting to fit into a shape I was never designed for. Being different had caused my family to regard me as inferior, but their lack of appreciation reflected on them rather than on me. Families should exemplify love, respect, and encouragement. I've never been happier since I began establishing a life with individuals that show up for me unconditionally. Concerning my parents and siblings, I have no idea what the future holds. However, I am done settling for less than I deserve. And, honestly, it feels great.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.